This is a beginning point. This is the beginning of the rest of my life. I got the meaning, and I got to write it down, because I don't want to forget it.
Just win, baby.
Man, I love that intro. Welcome back to the Gold Jacket Podcast, a proud member of the True North Fantasy Football Network. I'm your host, Gymnastic, and with me, as always, my co-host, Connor Donald. Connor, man, how have you been?
I have been absolutely awesome. Things are going well with baby. Things are going well in fantasy land. Things are going well in life. And this is the last episode in your house. You are moving tomorrow. How excited are you?
Yeah, I get the moving truck tomorrow. We get the keys Thursday. Fuck, man, it's gonna be wild.
We pulled this together on a whim. We really debated
yeah.
canceling, but we had to do it. We had to do it. And
Absolutely.
lucky, thank God we came on because we got some. Let's jump right into the storylines. Let's start with the breaking news that popped out like literally 10 minutes ago. Le'Veon Bell has officially been released from the New York Jets. First of all, instant reaction. Second of all, who do you want in that backfield? I know that your answer probably is neither or nobody, but you got to pick someone.
Oh, man. Well, for Dynasty, it's got to be LaMichael Pirine. My instant reaction seeing it was there was a question posed on it was who was actually going to get traded for Le'Veon Bell, and I actually said nobody. It's going to be the Jets because nobody is going to trade for him. This was very much like fantasy football where you see a guy put a guy up before he's going to end up cutting him just to see if you get anything for him. A third, a fourth, a 2020 second pick. Like they don't care. They know they're going to end up cutting them. That's exactly what Adam Gase and this New York Jets organization did. It's almost like they're playing fantasy football. They let their cards be known. They couldn't trade them for over a year. Then they ended up releasing them. Instant reaction though. I love it for Le'Veon Bell. Stop wasting your life there like that. It's a pit. They don't seem to be wanting to get rid of Adam Gase. At least not now. Maybe you go to a contender. Maybe you go to a place like New England. They could definitely use a solid runner like Le'Veon Bell. I'm not a big believer in Sony Michel, Damian Harris. I mean, yeah, he could be something, but I would much rather pair a guy like Le'Veon Bell. And like the Patriots are a sneaky team to try to do that shit. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, you're not going to trade within the division, but now he's been released. I don't know what their waiver claim is. I'd have to actually look into that because the news just broke. But if they're high, I would definitely expect him to take a grab at him. Where would you actually like to see him go?
Man, it's really interesting because man, so the man's paid, but now because the man probably carries a ridiculous dead cap, or he's still got a lot of dead cap to him, so he's getting paid no matter what. So the big question becomes: does he go to a team where there's the need, like Devontae Freeman waited for, or does he go to a team where he has a chance at a championship, but may not necessarily have that number one job? So that's the big question for me. And I mean, right off the top of my head, holy God, I can't even think of where I'd want him to land because it's been such a jumbled mess. But I could picture the Chargers. Honestly, it's weird, but I could picture the Chargers because they just put Eckler on IR, so now he's out for at least 3 weeks guaranteed. Which I thought he was on IR this whole time before it actually came into the news this past weekend that he was on the IR. And I'm sorry, but Lev Bell is better than Justin Jackson. And they put Jackson out there for a bunch of the game. And I don't know why he outplayed Joshua Kelly. For the life of me, I can't understand it. But they put him in for way more shares than way more snaps than Josh Kelly. And then they have Josh Kelly. I think Lev Bell could do really well there if they truly believe they're still a contender. And then when Eckler's back, you're pretty much rolling with an Eckler and a Lev Bell backfield. That could be pretty sexy. That could be pretty intriguing. Eckler owners will probably hate it, but Eckler owners are sitting there hating their lives right now anyways. So why not make it a little bit worse on them? from the perspective of the actual Jets, yeah, you got to go with Lamical Pirine. You know Frank Gore is going to get touches. Obviously, the man is the ageless wonder. He gets touches no matter where he goes. So you know he's going to get touches, but you know that Frank Gore isn't as effective in the passing game, whereas Lamical Pirine actually has some potential in that passing game, and you invested a draft pick in him. So you got to see what you have in the guy and see if it's somebody you can keep around. Kalen Ballage was released. He's a null factor, even if he was on the roster. The only other intriguing option would be Josh Adams, but even him, I don't see as getting any more work than a Pirine or Frank Gore. I think they can roll with Pirine and Gore and be just equally as effective as when they had Lev Bell.
Real quick, did they release Trenton Cannon?
I was just looking at the roster. I don't think he was there. I can't remember, though. I don't remember. Oh, look.
This is what happens when you move in a day and you do a show in the
The only rostered as of right now was Frank Gore, Lamical Pirine, Lev Bell, and Ty Johnson.
Oh,
the
the
only
Detroit
rostered
Wonder.
was he the only rostered running backs. And then Josh Adams is on the practice squad, and he is the only running back on the practice squad.
Oh man, brutal. So wherever Trenton Cannon is, wish you luck, bud.
Had a golden opportunity right here. Kalen Ballage had a golden opportunity to make himself look like the worst running back and get released this week if he somehow survived the cut last week too. So, but
did TJ Yeldon just score a touchdown? That just come across? TJ Yeldon just scored a touchdown.
Damn, it did. He definitely just did. Crazy stuff. But yeah, so that's the big news that I love when breaking news happens right before you go on the air. It's so good to get the fresh, right off the top of your head take that you have on the situation. But I think it's pretty obvious you keep rolling with Gore and Pirine, and suddenly Pirine becomes a super intriguing waiver wire option. I looked in a lot of my leagues. He's not out there in a lot of my leagues. But for if he's out there in one of your leagues and you have been decimated by the injury bug for running backs, this is an intriguing one to take a look at because it's better than the donuts that you're putting up or the 2s or the 3s or the 4s or whatever you're getting so unlucky to be putting up with whatever running back you're rolling out.
See, I'd be trying to trade Pirine while the hype's hot.
If you can get a hold of him and do it, if you can get a hold of him and move him, or if you have him and you can move him, by all means.
Yeah, if I have them, I'm taking offers right now.
There's the news, big headline: Gymnastic taking offers every week. You're taking offers on something. This is also the guy who literally Dak Prescott broke his ankle, snapped it on live television, and the first thing to pop up on my phone was Gymnastic put a player on the block, and it was a Andy Dalton share. Don't even let us come to grips with the reality of what just happened. He is putting people on the block instantly after an ankle snap to one of the best dudes in the NFL.
Hey, man.
Speaking of such, let's touch on that. Let's talk.
I love Dak. I love Dak, man. I never wish anybody that type of, really any injury. And that was horrific looking. Like, that was gross. Dak, though, I mean, I feel bad for you, man. Dallas should have paid you. You've done what you can do. To hear Booger actually say the words that he thinks that the Dallas Cowboys are a better organization with Andy Dalton. I don't know how he's on national television, and I'm not. He
clearly wasn't watching Bengals football for the last couple of years if he thinks that Dalton is better to carry that organization than Dak Prescott.
Now,
honestly,
in the leagues that I did have Andy Dalton, where one of them you happen to be in and seen it pop up, I had him because I was afraid of Dak holding out. So I was like, oh, Jesus, if he holds out, I mean, it's a good offense. He's going to be a starting quarterback. Let's have him. And then I just sort of forgot about him in their deep benches or whatever. And then this sort of popped up. So, yeah, I'm going to absolutely. This is a guy that I would have probably dropped on a waiver wire at. So why not try to get something for him? But again, Like again, this is the time if you are not a contending team and you just happen to have this piece or really anything, if you happen to have deep QBs like me, this is when you start shopping those guys, man. Like last week mid game, I traded Matt Ryan. I mean, yeah, he had a stinker, but before that stinker, I ended up trading him. I had an ample amount of QBs. I needed some tight end help. I traded him straight up for Mark Andrews. I love it. This is
Nice.
where now I'm sending out trade offers for with Andy Dalton in them to guys. Like I don't care. Like I'll take like the second round pick. Like I understand he's not a future starter, but he's a starter now for a contending team with no competition. So if you are 4-1, if you are 5-0, if you are lucky and you happen to skate by in a super flex league where it's deep and you just lost Dak, come at me. If I like or go looking for Dalton, you know what I mean? Like if you are in that type of league, like these are the types of moves that you should be making. If you are not in contention, like I don't see why you shouldn't be going out and looking for Dak shares. Like if I'm 1-4, you damn right I'll throw out a first round pick for Dak. I know what he's going to be. That's not an injury I'm concerned about. He'll be back. He'll be fine. He'll be fine. The medical,
I mean the final medical diagnosis or the final medical timeline is 4 to 6 months, which is a lot better than an Alex Smith who almost had his life ended, his career ended when he snapped his legs. The snapping of an ankle, what although disgusting to watch, is a
less
far
severe.
better situation than what some people have been put into in the NFL, like an Alex Smith. So speaking of Dak Prescott, let's touch on that. Will Dak Prescott be back in the silver and blue next year? And if not, where's a spot that you would like to see him land?
Whew, I don't think he will be. And a team really that for some reason or another, I think maybe could probably go in the Dak market if it came up is the Jacksonville Jaguars. They seem to like to throw money at free agent quarterbacks. They did it with Nick Foles with a ridiculous amount. I don't see why they wouldn't do it with Dak, but do I want to see him go there? No,
failing
I don't.
in the tanking for Trevor process.
They
so
are
if you fail to tank for Trevor and Justin Fields,
they're not going to get those two.
Then it'll be very interesting to see what they ultimately do, because is Gardner Minshew the starter? Or if a guy like Dak Prescott suddenly appears on the market, suddenly Gardner Minshew's not looking as attractive. Well, I mean, arguably, the mustache, the 70s porn star look. He remains attractive, but not as a not as a quarterback for your team, as a franchise leading quarterback when a Dak Prescott suddenly pops up.
Are you franchise tagging them if you are the Joneses? Again?
Oh, wow. The ultimate disrespect that would be. If they do that, he would hold out. There is no doubt in my mind he would be
he has to
holding
hold out. You can't gamble on yourself with Dan. He did, and he lost.
He did, exactly. And like at the end of the day, like I said, did I say it on here, or am I said it on the Kelly Green Hour, my Philadelphia Eagles show? I said if I was Dak Prescott, after what Jerry Jones said on that radio show, I would say if I'm not the highest paid quarterback, I am not coming back to your team. And I would not turn my back. I would not think about it for 2 seconds, because if you have the audacity to go, first of all, if you're an owner and you go out and have a radio show, you have a whole nother thing wrong with you, and making comments like what he did. But then if you're Dak Prescott and you feel that disrespect, like I felt the disrespect for him, I wouldn't come back for anything less than being paid like Patrick Mahomes. And I get the point. It's ridiculous. It's never going to happen. But that's the point. You don't go back to Jerryland. You leave Jerryland. You go somewhere else. You're going to get a starting job. You don't have to gamble on yourself.
Where's he gonna go?
The Jags are a good option. Washington. What if Washington doesn't land one of the quarterbacks that they want?
You don't want to be Washington.
You don't
Maybe
want
San Francisco. They got the weapons, but like, where are you going to go that has the weapons like that? I mean, sure, the offensive line has deteriorated right in front of our eyes, but they still got, like, as you boasted, 3 wide receivers that can go over 1,000 yards, and it is looking like that. And they have arguably one of the top 3 running backs in Dynasty. probably the top two this year with CMC and Barkley going down.
Yeah, I think ultimately for that situation, though, he won't take the franchise tag, and he sure as hell isn't gambling on himself. So he's going to be trying to ride the fact of what he had done in the 4 years prior before he snapped his ankle, which is really tough to go off of when you're a quarterback trying to sell yourself. He couldn't even sell himself to Jerry Jones in the last like year of trying to negotiate with Jerry Jones. So the fact that he's going to come back, I know a lot of people are pissed at Jerry and feel like paying him would be the right thing to do next year, but that's just not
It
a
would be the
smart
right thing to do.
football business move.
Did you see how the team rallied around him? Like they love him, man. He's a leader.
And he's loved
And-
in the NFL in general. People love him. He is like as an Eagles fan, I hate him, but I love his love for the game and his passion for the people around him and the team around him. You can't disrespect the man for that.
Absolutely.
So
So
it'll
with that,
definitely be interesting to see what happens
yeah.
from that perspective going forward.
Talking about tonight's game that's getting played, the Tennessee Titans and their lack of positive COVID tests, and the Bills, who is now getting their Thursday night game pushed back to Monday. With COVID wreaking havoc on week 5, do you think that it is going to continue to wreak havoc on the season, or do you think we're going to see games again on Tuesdays and maybe Wednesdays throughout course of the week? Because I mean they said they could add the 18th week, but I still think they can't really go too much further than that.
Yeah, I think this week will be a real telltale week. If any more cases come out amongst the 4 or 5 teams that are currently being like watched over and tested closely, if there's any more cases that leads to anything this week, I think we're in it for the long haul. And I feel so bad for commissioners if that's the way that this ends up being. Because I can only imagine the headache they're going through every week. As soon as something's announced, like every Sunday morning, my phone has blown up with people saying, "What are we doing about this game? What are we doing about that game? What can we do with this guy? What are we going to do with that guy?" So I feel bad for commissioners, but at the end of the day, this week will be a big week. If we can get through the remainder of this week without any positive tests, and then we go into this weekend and we play all the games, I think this could be a positive sign because I think a lot of teams have learned from what happened with the Titans. And I know a punishment hasn't come down yet, but rumors of punishment don't sound very promising for the Titans. And you don't want to be that team that breaks the rules a second time and gets
Absolutely.
the bigger brunt of the blow.
I do like these dual Monday night games though. I don't know about you, but like I'm loving 2 Monday night games. Like I would like to see that format going forward. Maybe totally eliminate the Thursday because I'm not a big fan of the Thursday, but I'd like to see 2 Monday nighters if they like push that going forward. That'd be pretty sweet. I know they won't because they have another day and they're never going to release a day because if anything they're going to try to go for Tuesday. I could see and try to drop like a Monday game and a Tuesday game, but oh man, I would
And
love
we're
to see
seeing
2
it. I
Monday
mean,
nights.
it's really different to have a Tuesday night game, but I kind of like the idea of it flowing with the rest of the week. Whereas Thursday, just kind of bam, you have that shortened week, or you have that extra long week at the end of it. You love it at the end of it, but at the start of it, you really hate it. Most of the guys don't even practice, and then you go into that game. So Thursday's a really weird one, but I wouldn't mind the idea of like the Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, double header Monday type drift that you got going on. I definitely like that
Absolutely.
idea for sure. But what about you? What's your opinion on that? Do you think that there'll be more cases and more issues with the NFL?
Oh, absolutely. I said it already before, and I've been on record saying that I thought it was going to get shut down by like week 2. I can't believe there hasn't been more positive testing than there is. But what I will say, I don't know how you would bubble the NFL if it ever did come down to it. I know they're saying they can't leave their host cities that they're in during their bye weeks, but it's really weird, man. And like I know the NBA did it, which is another thing. Like I don't understand. Like the NBA did it, the NFL had time, but I mean, I don't know. I don't know how
It's
you could
tough though. You
really
got to
do that.
find
I
like a
know it's
you got to
really
find this
tough.
location where you have like 4 or 5 massive football fields and like enough hotels to have at this point you'd have the practice squad or the practice squads there too. So you'd have to have enough hotel rooms for personnel, players, practice squad,
Oh,
and
absolutely.
it
I
would
know it's
just be
really hard. You
absurd.
can't do it, but
The numbers just don't add up for the NFL like they do other leagues.
yeah, I know. I
I
know.
know
I
you
know.
can bubble for the playoffs, which they're talked about, and that that makes
Yeah, but
sense. You
can you
can do that.
really like? Are you really bubbling for the playoffs? I don't know, man. Like we'll see. I hope we get there. I'll say this. I'm grateful uh that we have football. Like it was our Thanksgiving. That's definitely something that I'm thankful for in this COVID season. Obviously my family and my friends, but definitely the fact that we have football. A little upset that I'm missing it right now as we talk, but I'm glad that we are talking about it. Hopefully I see a little
100%.
Hopefully, I see a little Titans touchdown soon. Pop up on the phone.
All right. So let's continue to wrap up some week 5 stuff. Dalvin Cook and his injury concerns rear their ugly head again as he will be out this Sunday. Um, what is your opinion on the situation with Dalvin Cook? Do you trust him? Do you have him in leagues? Are you keeping him in leagues? And Alexander Madison, what are your thoughts on him? Do you believe, and this is something that I had talked about earlier in the year, I kind of said Tony Pollard, but to the same point, clearly he isn't this year. Is Alexander Madison the best handcuff to own in the NFL?
Oh man, no. He's not the best handcuff to own in the NFL. Chase Edmonds is the best handcuff to own in the NFL, I think, because
He
he has.
should not be handcuffed, but
That's
yes,
exactly right, Connor. Because he shouldn't be the handcuff, but he is right now. So Chase Edmonds is the best handcuff in the NFL. But no, I don't have a
touche,
lot of that.
touche.
I don't have a lot of Dalvin Cook. Where he was going in drafts, I was taking Josh Jacobs, and I just didn't get really a lot of them. And if I did have Dalvin Cook, I do not have Alexander Madison on those teams. I'm not a guy that grabs the handcuff of those top guys. If I have Zeke, I don't have Pollard. If I have Kamara, I don't have Murray. Like if I have Murray, it's because I have Zeke. Like I'm grabbing another top handcuff, another top RB handcuff, hoping he goes down. Like if I have Zeke, I have Madison, hoping for this exact situation. I didn't want I think it's JJ Zachariason that opined this, where he said what is the point of wasting a roster space with Alexander Madison sitting on your bench doing absolutely nothing, hoping that you use him in the effect that Dalvin Cook goes down? Because then you're just dropping Dalvin Cook. He goes, don't you want to maximize the value in having 2 starting running backs if that running back did go down? Of course you do, because then you can trade him in the dynasty league if you wanted to, or you could use him to keep riding and rolling like it happens. Derrick Henry with a 9-yard touchdown. There's what gymnastic likes to see. Sorry, got some.
It's all good, but I agree. I agree. Like to this idea of having like the handcuff, like understanding that it's a handcuff, but having the starter and the handcuff seems like a really counterproductive approach. Especially depending on the size of your bench. But even if then, usually the handcuff's going pretty high too. So you're investing 2 decent position picks in a draft to have the 2 players and have one who puts up 5 every single week and the other who's putting up 25 until one goes down. And
Absolutely.
it's super counterproductive. It's like if you want to have a handcuff, go ahead and have Dalvin Cook, and why don't you just go ahead and get Mike Boone? Why not go way down, wait it out,
Well,
wait at the end,
again,
and get that
why wouldn't you
extra
go
handcuff?
for why wouldn't you go for a Tony Pollard instead though, and cuff Zeke's back? You know what I mean? Or why wouldn't you just wait a couple more rounds and go Laddie Murray and go for Mr. Goal Line and just try to and if Alvin Kamara goes down, I don't know, man. That's just me. Maybe that's just me. Because again, you are the only backfield in the NFL where I would say it was decent enough to handcuff both, take both. You're fucking doing it in round 1 and 3 though, and it was the Cleveland Browns, maybe round 1 and 5. That was the only backfield where I could have seen you taking both and rolling both weekly, not and not wasting your roster space, hoping that one goes down so the other can take over, where you could both eating 15 to 17 points a week. That would have been it. But again, are you going to do it? I didn't see anybody do it. So
No,
doubt
I
it.
saw like I'm in a league where I saw somebody trade for Hunt and they had Chubb and they look like an absolute genius right now. But at the time, a lot of people were scratching their head because I think he gave up a first round pick and something else for Kareem Hunt and he had Nick Chubb. And a lot of people were like, and now they're sitting there and they're like, well, maybe he was kind of smart because of the Nick Chubb injury. But back to Dalvin Cook, I have no shares of Dalvin Cook, and I promised myself I would not invest in Dalvin Cook at all because his injury history goes back all the way back to like high school. I just wasn't there for that. I wasn't in it for that. I would rather go with Alvin Kamara
I
or
mean,
go with Zeke or go with some established players who don't really have a storybook history of injuries. And that's around the ballpark where you were getting them. You could have went Kamara, you could have went Zeke, you could have went with a Nick Chubb. You could have went with probably another quarterback if you're in a super flex league. And instead, some people take Dalvin Cook year over year, and then you see them complain about his injuries, and it's like the writing's on the wall. If you follow it back to high school, he's had an injury almost every single year of his career.
yep. And you
No
get no
failure.
discount on it though. That's the crazy part. On a running back that's had disc or injuries on his knees and his legs, you get no discount on it. I have no idea. I was actually in a super flex startup this year where I picked up Patrick Mahomes after Dalvin Cook.
That's
Could not
crazy.
put
That just blows my mind. Unreal.
absolutely. Let's keep it
But
rolling.
yeah, from one weird hype to a different type of hype, the DK Metcalf hype.
Oh
One
yeah.
hype train that we really weren't aboard because we thought that the better option and the cheaper option was Tyler Lockett.
It still
And
is.
I was going to say, based on conversations, I believe we both still stand firm on that. Are you buying the hype of the DK Metcalf
Oh
hype?
man.
Is he the wide receiver to own in Seattle, or
Okay.
and bear in mind where he was
Dynasty.
drafted, where
Okay,
you
so
have to
here it is.
draft him.
What outrages me, and actually it doesn't really outrage me because I'm being a pretty calm and peaceful guy. But so I've been seeing on Twitter that DK Metcalf is the wide receiver one dynasty to own. And I said like, and then I'm seeing like Tyreek Hill 5, and I'm like, wow, that's crazy to me. That is absolutely crazy to me. Like Devontae Adams, I'd rather have over DK Metcalf right now. Yes, I get that he's 27, but again, then I had a conversation with somebody about how it is all just personal values, and like how you're buying him at the what he's perceived ceiling is going to be, and it won't be cheaper than it is now. Like it's only going to get more expensive if it is what it is. But which is true, I said, but I go like I would rather have the proven production of Tyreek Hill because he is my dynasty wide receiver one. Um, then the like I'm not taking away from DK Metcalf. Is he a talented player? Absolutely, he's a talented player. Sure, he is. He has a great quarterback playing with him too. But still, I'm still like I would
But
take. I
when
would
you
still
think
take.
about next year and when he's going in like round 2, because he's
But like
the wide receiver one to own, I am 100% skipping that. I am leaving that right where it's at and waiting for Tyreek Hill or DeAndre Hopkins or Keenan Allen or these guys who are clearly going to go behind him because the hype train has left the station and is barreling
like
along
I can't
like
believe it. Like this,
absurdly.
I'm go for more proven production, and then even hearing like some of these guys that are boomer bust, and I'm like, really? Because like Tyreek Hill's produced a touchdown every game and like 70 yards. Like it's fucking crazy. Like I
This
take
isn't, we're not talking about Leonard Fournette here. We're not talking about the guy who goes to the fourth quarter of a game with 5 fantasy points and suddenly bursts out a 90-yard run for a touchdown, and there you go, your week's made once every
no.
couple weeks. This isn't like this situation.
Like I
Um,
said, DK is a great player. He's a great wide receiver. I don't have a lot of him because I was passing to get the Tyler Lockett. I thought the play because if you look at the numbers, still look at the numbers. It's not a 1 and a 2 thing. It's more of a 1A 1B thing there. They have a very similar yardage, a very very similar touchdown production. Just it's the yards per catch that DK excels in.
and their targets are almost 50-50. Like you're
Yeah.
literally looking at literally a 1A, 1B. You're looking at a super similar situation to Dallas, where it's 1A, 1B between Cooper and Lamb, and then Gallup's there at 2, the clear 2 based on targets and based on his production. But you're pretty much looking at the same thing in Seattle. You got your 1A and you got your 1B, and which one do you want to own? Well, if you're looking at it from mine and Jim's perspective, you're looking at it as save your dollars and wait a round or two and get Tyler Lockett, who's putting up really similar production at the discount value. We talked about the discount value with Dalvin Cook. This is a discount value here because Tyler Lockett, he will give you those boom games too. But he has also proven to give you the bust games. But we're bound to see DK Metcalf hit some busts and hit some bumps in the road as well. It's I almost can see it happening in the future.
Look at who they play after their bye week. I think it's 4 division opponents in 5 weeks or something like that. It's crazy. They go through a crazy division run after their bye week. Mm-hmm. And they go up, and DK Metcalf is gonna face some serious competition, especially now that he's drawn a big old target on that back. Which only means it's going to be a little softer coverage for Mr. Tyler Toe Derek Swag Lockett.
Yep, I completely agree. We're definitely on the same wavelength as far as this one goes. And now I want to hit on one more storyline because I think this is really interesting because you talk about new regimes and you talk about the changes and the impact on fantasy value. The Atlanta Falcons have finally, thank you for the love of God, have fired Dan Quinn, and they went a step further and fired their manager as well. 2 of the most incompetent men in football, in my opinion.
Thomas Dimitroff.
So, first of all, we'll go through this storyline quick. Impact on fantasy. Who do you see as someone who will be out, and who do you see as someone you want to own with this new regime?
2020 going forward. Just for only 2020 season, Todd Gurley. He's the guy that I want in that offense. Dynasty, it's Calvin Ridley. I don't care who's coming in. I'd like to see him get. Actually, you know what, Dak in Atlanta, I'd like to see. There you go.
I didn't even think about it, but I was about to say the same thing because a new regime usually likes to have a new quarterback, and Matt Ryan has some rich dollars to be paid out. If you're able to move those rich dollars somewhere else and bring in Dak Prescott, which will definitely be a richer contract, but you get a younger option and you pair him with Calvin Ridley. Another person I would be worried about is Julio Jones. Obviously, Julio Jones is someone who's been kind of talked about on the trade block. But yeah, but it's the same as Todd Gurley at this point. If you have Todd Gurley and somehow you still have him and you've sat on him this long, you're pretty much stuck with him for the rest of the year. But it's not a bad option to be stuck with.
I think you could trade him.
If you find a good contender who's been hit by the injury bug pretty bad, you can
definitely trade him.
You can definitely move him.
What did he have the last week? Over 100 yards in a tutty, no?
I do believe so.
Too many red zone touchdowns.
He hasn't been bad. I mean, he hasn't been great, but I mean, he hasn't been bad. He did his last 2 weeks. Oh, I'm seeing the Packers game. 1 minute. Let me open this up here, and we will look.
I'd throw this whole
against Carolina. He went 14 rushes, 121, and a touchdown. But I mean, you look at his production so far. He has 1 game where he didn't have a touchdown, and he's averaging a touchdown a game nonetheless. Absolutely. Even without that game, he had a game with 2 touchdowns. So, I mean, he's definitely the one to own. And I said it at the start of I said it throughout the offseason that he's someone you want to own, especially if you're contending. But pretty much you're stuck with him unless you can find a contender who's desperate or a contender who believes in Todd Gurley and is okay with riding him into the sunset, just like Julio Jones. But that's I agree. Calvin Ridley is someone to own. I think Russell Gage is someone to keep around because you never know what might happen there. He's an intriguing option, big body, red zone guy who's going to get you a lot of touchdowns no matter what quarterback you bring in. But Julio Jones, Matt Ryan, and Todd Gurley going forward are going to be really interesting bodies to watch after this season, even maybe as the trade deadline approaches. What might happen, although I don't think they'll make any rash decisions with an interim coach. I think they'll wait for an actual new regime, new manager, new coach to come in and make that decision on that big move like Julio leaving or Matt Ryan leaving.
Absolutely. So, Connor, I want to ask you something. This
Fire
week,
away.
with all these COVIDs and injuries that were happening this week, I want to know, did you find gold last week? Because I know I definitely struck out. I was a big fool last
I
week.
struck out with all but one. I nailed the Teddy Bridgewater, but that was kind of too easy. When you're facing the Atlanta Falcons, the Dan Quinn firing game, like it was kind of it was pretty too easy to call on that one. So that was yeah. But I
I
missed on
swung and I
everything
missed.
else.
I swung, I missed. So, with that said, though, I want to try to get back on track.
Fire away. Fire gold. Give me a gold QB. Give me a let's hit it out of the park, Jim, right now.
I want Matt Stafford against the Jacksonville Jaguars as a get right game. That's what I want.
Everybody goes to the Jacksonville Jaguars for their get right game. Look at Joe Mixon 2 weeks ago.
Hey,
that is
you
the
know what
get
they?
right game.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is where I'm going, man. I'm going against Matty Stafford. His completion percentage right now is still only 60%. Usually averages around 64%, 65%. I do expect it to steadily climb. I do expect DeAndre Swift to steadily get more involved in the game, in the short passing game, which is going to be a huge relief for Matt Stafford. Don't get it fooled, though. He does still have a big arm. Kenny Golladay in the red zone. TJ Hawkinson, watch out. Just the Jacksonville Jaguars' problem isn't their personnel. It's not been the defensive players. I don't think it's been an attitude problem with them. I think it's always been the front office and then the aptitude of them. And yeah, they eventually grow frustrated with the ineptitude of that front office and their moves, man. So, but I do think, as you said, that everybody goes to Jacksonville to get right, except COVID, I guess. But yeah, everybody goes to Jacksonville to get right, and I definitely expect Matt Stafford to continue that trend. Who do you got, my friend?
I got Ben Roethlisberger. The Browns are not doing that well against quarterbacks in general. They've given up the third most yards in the NFL and the second most touchdowns to quarterbacks. And as an Eagles fan, watching Chase Claypool last week, Ben Roethlisberger can find himself a weapon almost at will. And when he finds that weapon, he will pepper that weapon. So I'm sure with the weapons that they have in place, Chase Claypool, James Washington, Juju Smith-Schuster, Deontay Johnson, if he's healthy, there's just too many weapons for a struggling secondary to hold back. So I think Ben Roethlisberger will be gold this week because he's going to get one, if not multiple weapons. It just so happened that when you play the Eagles and you get the mismatch of going up against that linebackers, you can pepper that guy all day, every day, because he's going to score. Just look at George Kittle 2 weeks ago and Chase Claypool last week. So that is my gold QB. I'll do my gold running back. And then I'll flip it to you. I got David Montgomery on this one. I mean, when you look at it, wait, 1 second. Hold the phone. Yeah, David Montgomery. The Panthers are giving up the most fantasy points to running backs right now. They're giving up about 36 per game PPR points. And David Montgomery is the running back, the only running back in Chicago, essentially, at this point. He's getting the targets, he's getting the carries, he's getting it all. So he's averaging 13 carries and 5 targets per game, and he's pretty much in the top 20 in every single opportunity category that there is among running backs right now. So how could you not love this opportunity? If you're not going to Jacksonville to get right, Carolina is a pretty damn good second, third stop for you.
Yeah, well, for my running back, I'm going for a guy that also is the guy there, man. He has the opportunity share. He has a massive target share. hasn't really been producing to what fantasy players have been wanting and expecting, and that is JT Jonathan Taylor against the Cincinnati Bengals. He has had he averages about 17.8 touches per game, but he's had 88.3% of his runs go for positive runs. He only commands an 8.3% market share of the targets. I know Philip Rivers, everyone's calling for his head. Well, if Philip Rivers wants to fucking get right, maybe you should increase that target share to Jonathan Taylor because he has a 92.3% catch rate. If you want to start looking better there, Phil, start throwing the ball to JT and stop slamming JT down the middle. Maybe have some designed outside scheme runs and let him use his speed, man, because this guy can burn. Trust me. I think it's a get right game here too. I think it's going to be the coming out party that everybody really wants to see. Stick with it. Like I said, the opportunity share is there. Like I said, he hits positive runs almost 89% of the time. That's like, I don't know what else you'd really want in a running back. The only difference between him and Josh Jacobs right now, I think, is 70 yards and I think a touchdown. You know what I mean? And like six, and that separates them from, I think, 6 points in or 6 positions in fantasy, from I think RB6 to RB13. So the opportunities there. Watch out, JT. That's my running back.
Absolutely. What do you got at wide receiver?
Oh man,
fire away.
That was pretty obvious. Been stretching. I've been trying to flex it out, show it off a little bit. It's my man. It's my boy. It's Darius Slayton. Mr. Target Share right there, man. Yeah, DJ, Daniel Jones. I did profess him as a deep sleeper this year, going into the season. Apparently, I look like a big piece of shit and failed on that one. That's a big swing and a miss, and I'm willing to take it. But guess what? Is there still the opportunity for Darius Slayton, and he's still coming down with it? What I didn't realize was Daniel Jones apparently in the reliability of Saquon Barkley and what he brings to bring the defenses stacking boxes and giving Daniel Jones a little bit of extra opportunity to throw and open it up for him, because without Saquon, like, he's made some pretty big mistakes. But like I said, Darius Slayton's still getting a massive opportunities there. He's like getting, I think, 12, 13 passes a game. So I expect that to just keep rolling. I expect them to have to throw quick, throw fast. They're going against Washington, who has a good run defense. So I don't expect Devontae Freeman to really get going. I do expect if that abysmal shit show of a fucking team, the New York Giants, are going to do anything and get this win, man, it's going to have to be passing. That's for sure.
Definitely. That I mean, as a fan of a team in the NFC least right now, it's a pretty excruciating division to watch. And I picked another guy who's going to get peppered with targets, because he has been peppered with targets week in and week out. DeAndre Hopkins. Dallas, let's be honest, Dallas does not have a CB1. Dallas has zero answer to DeAndre Hopkins this week, and it shows as well in their defense, because they're top 5 in touchdowns allowed and fantasy points allowed to wide receivers. So it shows that they are struggling in the secondary, and it shows that their offense is putting up 30 points a week and still coming up short. So at the end of the day, DeAndre Hopkins is going to feast this week. He's probably easily going to get 10 catches and see like 15 targets, like he's been seeing almost every single week. Kyler Murray's best friend and one of the best acquisitions you're ever going to see by, God rest his soul, our dear friend Bob over there in Houston, or who once was there in Houston. One of the best deals, and one that Kyler Murray really needs to go and thank Bill O'Brien for big time.
Absolutely. Who you got rolling as your tight end, man?
You're absolutely going to love this, because I got Irv Smith Jr. I've been obvious. I've been way too obvious with some of my picks.
2 weeks in a row we hit the same tight end, man.
So what we're probably going to miss, because we gave everyone Mo Alley Cox last week and he was a dud. But the Falcons can't defend wide receivers, and they are the second worst against tight ends. So the situation does not get any better. And Irv started to flash last week. He started to show that if you give him some targets, he will definitely do some things for you. Before this game, it was like week 1, he had 4 targets. Outside of that, he had 0, 1, 1. And then this past week was 5. So he actually got 5 targets and ended up the tight end 11 with 10.4 PPR points. He had the most routes run, almost double his prior game. Highest snap share he's had all season, and the most targets he's had all season. Funny correlation. You give him more routes, you give him more snaps, you give him more targets, he produces. How weird is that?
So what I liked, and I got Irv Smith too. Again, Atlanta is going to get torched by those fucking tight ends. But more for the reason on Irv Smith is I saw a change in Kubiak's offensive play calling once Dalvin Cook was like, whoops. They didn't as much rely as heavily on Alexander Mattison as they would Dalvin Cook. Yes, they did use Alexander Mattison, but they did not use Alexander Mattison as they would to the full extent if it was Dalvin Cook. They did start to rely more on the tight end because he is a fucking athletic freak. Now they got 2 athletes that are going to end up working in between the 20s, and that's Justin Jefferson and Irv Smith Jr. And then they got a nice big red zone weapon and red zone reindeer there, Rudolph. So, like, I definitely expect as long as Dalvin Cook is out, which is definitely this week, and then I think they're rolling into a bye, but definitely for sure this week he is out. I expect to see Irv Smith Jr. Market share numbers and target share numbers go up through the roof.
Definitely,
2 weeks in a row, man.
Couldn't agree more. But I think we have a lot better hit potential on this one because Mo Alley Cox was truly the definition of boomer bust, and it's going to be whoever Rivers is looking to on a given week.
He gave me donuts last week, man. It was brutal.
I know. I have him in. I think I have him in only 1 or 2 leagues, and they're best ball leagues, thank goodness. So he just fell to the wayside. But
I started him. And I started, I think, what was it, Philip Lindsay, because I was late on the roster switch on the COVID, and I still put up 189 points in 1 league.
But this is what we get because we give gold and fool's gold, and then we look like fools if we don't put our golds in because 2 weeks ago I did it. I said, sleeper Chase Edmonds, didn't put him in anyways, and he had a good game. So you damn well bet Chase Edmonds was in every single league this past week. And thank goodness because in one of the leagues, Devin Singletary was going to be in, and I didn't trust that the game would go on, and I put in Chase Edmonds, and thank God because Singletary is not doing a whole lot of much tonight for Buffalo. So thank goodness on that one. But let's get to the Fool's Gold.
Yeah, let's get to these fools, man. And with my quarterback, I hate to say this to you, buddy, but it's Carson Wentz or Carson Wentz, how I've been heard to him before, but he's going up against Baltimore. Baltimore defense is no fucking slouch. The problem, like I keep saying last week, it was with Wentz, is he holds the ball too much, man. He holds the ball too long. Like just throw that fucking ball away instead of taking a ridiculous sack or throwing it into deep pass coverage. Like just throw it away when the play's not there, man. Like go on to your read them 1, 2, 3. They're not there. Either tuck it and run or chuck it. Tuck it or chuck it. That should be his motto going forward. Tuck it or chuck it.
100%. Couldn't agree more. I'm not even going to get started on that, but I am going to give my Fool's Gold QB who learned last week that the Baltimore Ravens ain't no slouch, and that's Joe Burrow. The Colts defense, if there's another defense in the league that has been rocking and rolling against quarterbacks, it's the Indianapolis Colts. They've been rock solid, only allowing about 16 PPR points to quarterbacks, and they have a 7 to 9 touchdown to interception ratio. They are the only defense in the league that has more interceptions than touchdowns allowed. So really? That is So that's a scary defense to be going up against as a rookie in Joe Burrow. So I think that he's going to have a really tough day. Although, I mean, I should have prefaced this by saying the best QB they have faced this year, the Colts, is Baker Mayfield, but they have allowed only 280 yards of total offense through 5 weeks of the season. So nonetheless, super impressive. So Joe Burrow, could be a long night. Could be a long Sunday for him.
Keep it rolling. Who you got at running back?
I went in a broader sense again this week. Last
Oh,
week I went
Jesus.
with the wide receivers of Tampa, and
Ask him to
basically
pick one guy.
if Mike Evans did not get a touchdown, I would have nailed that because I put Scotty Miller in a few leagues, and he put up a massive donut, the ugliest of donuts. I'm
Out of picking out of any wide receiver from Tampa, you pick Scotty Miller over Mike Evans.
But I got the Rams running backs, and the only reason I got the Rams running backs is because which one are you really going to play? I could pick any one of them.
Cam Akers.
Do you want the week 1 Malcolm Brown, the week 3 Daryl Henderson, the Cam Akers, the guy who's just coming back from an injury? No matter who, the 49ers have remained ridiculously strong against the run despite the injuries to their team. I watched 2 weeks ago. They gave Miles Sanders. They wreaked havoc on Miles Sanders, and that's a solid running back. Miles Sanders is better than any of those 3 running backs. So if Miles Sanders had a rough night, I don't imagine whatever one of those 3 Rams running backs you want to pick or flip your triangular shaped coin to, good luck. But I don't think any of them are going to give you anything. If you really want me to pick one, the number 1 right now, I think, is Daryl Henderson. So if you want me to pick one, Daryl Henderson, don't go with him. But in all reality,
three-sided coin.
You absolutely do not. That's the point.
Oh man,
who's your running back?
I'm going with the number 1 running offense in the NFL, Cleveland Browns. But it's Kareem Hunt specifically because I don't care about Dearness Johnson or Dontrell Hilliard.
The people who spent absurd amounts of money on Johnson.
Yeah, there you go. I'm like, Hilliard was free. But the Steelers have been stingy on the run defense. I think it's going to be a shootout. So if Hunt does end up doing anything, it's going to be in the passing game. But again, like, I don't think Baker Mayfield's really going to have the time to do what he has to do. And I don't think it's going to be a big game from Hunt. Definitely not on the ground. Maybe as 5 catches, 60 yards. But again, I guess that'd be good in PPR, right? Because that would be like 11 points. Oh,
the Steelers' defense is super stingy, though.
But I'm looking for like 23 points from Hunt. If I'm
like you'd be looking at for a lot more. But that defense is super stingy. If it wasn't for Miles Sanders' 74-yard touchdown run,
he'd have 6 yards. He held him in check. Run. Yeah, 6 yards rushing.
6 yards, 2 receptions for 19 yards, and he did have 1 touchdown. So I think he goes from being
on
the RB
74-yard run, though. So if you take that away, he doesn't have the touchdown either.
Yeah, well, no, he had 2. He had 2 touchdowns. 2.
Oh,
so
yeah.
He did. He still would have had one tutty to go with him. But at the end of the day, they held him in check and up until that point. And they held him in check after that point because that happened in the second quarter. So, yeah. But right. I never want to be right about my Eagles failing. So good on Miles Sanders on that run.
All right. So for my wide receiver, you went for the entire Rams backfield. I went on the other side. Of this coin. I went with Brandon Ayuk because I don't roll with a roller. I pick one player. I don't think it's just basically like I love Ayuk. He's a great yak guy. I love him, but plain and simple, I'm not believing in CJ Beathard, and I don't like a hobbled Jimmy G. I don't believe that you're going to get a 100% Jimmy G in that game if he does play. And for that fact, I don't think you're going to get a 100% Brandon Ayuk. So, again, out of what you're going to expect to get out of Brandon Ayuk, I would be expecting to get an 18 to 20 point game out of him at this point after seeing what he's been putting up. I would only expect to see around 7 to 8 points from him this game, which makes it a little bit more realistic. Because I do, again, expect him to get about 3 or 4 catches still, probably like 30 yards.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking that very similarly. I was looking at that San Francisco, the wide receivers. But, I mean, it's tough. And Jimmy Garoppolo did not look 100% last week, and it did not look like a guy who was going to come back ready to roll here in the next week or two at all.
No, man, and I don't believe in Beathard.
No, and nor should you. Nor should you. For me, my wide receiver, I will take just one, and it is DJ Moore. DJ Moore
Ooh.
had his coming out game last week, and finally, but he's up against these very tough Bears secondary. So I think Moore is going to regress again to probably more like an 8 to 10 point game, which doesn't sound terrible on the surface, but a lot of people drafted DJ Moore for boom games, 20, 25, 30, something of what we saw last week. And I really don't think that he is going to do it against such a tough challenge. I almost picked Robbie Anderson. It was really tough to pick between the two.
Oof.
And I picked DJ Moore, but I think they're both going to struggle. That's a tough secondary to face. But the one that people are going to look to as a starter because of his coming out last week is DJ Moore.
Yeah, I think people are looking at both of them as starters right now. I think people are looking at Robbie Anderson like this year's Devontae Parker.
Mm-hmm.
But
which is 100% fair assessment of the situation. Is this going to continue? That's really tough to say, and I'd like to see the rest of the season out before making a call on what might happen in year 2 of this contract and what they do with that team.
Absolutely,
because there's still a lot of overhauling and work to be done there.
Who do
And
you got?
and the CMC impact when he comes back too.
Who do you got at tight end?
I got Noah Fant, but because I don't think he will play, I do have a second option. But Noah Fant, if he's coming back from an injury that was considered week to week, so if he does come back, it's probably sooner than he should be coming back. And a desperate plea from them to get weapons in place because right now they have Jerry Jeudy, Tim Patrick, and Melvin Gordon pretty much catching balls from not Drew Lock. A very troubled quarterback room, whoever they end up starting.
Who do I start? Rippin?
Probably Rippin again. Probably. I would probably assume that because he built the most rapport with the weapons that are there. So probably Rippin. But my backup to the end, the Pats are super stingy against tight ends. So not a game to rush back from an injury at all. My other option would be Austin Hooper. He's up against pretty stingy defense. He's disappointed overall this season. So it will likely be a pretty rough day for Hooper or Fant, whoever ends up rolling out at that tight end position. Who do you got?
Oh man, it was really, really hard for me this week to do it. I like you. I know I was chirping you on just the one guy. It's all because I have two guys here for the tight end position. It's Gerald Everett. He had a pretty good game last week. The 49ers defense has shown, as you said, that they can stop really anybody with anybody. They can be on their fourth string guy and still shut down a very, very talented NFL caliber tight end. Yes, I am talking about Gerald Everett, not Tyler Higbee. The other guy that I was just going to throw out there because I'm sure he's getting thrown into lineups. I mean, I have to roll with him. Same with Gerald Everett because of the buys. Now I'm rolling with Gerald Everett in some, and in a lot of other leagues, this guy was just coming off of a buy, and that's Big Bob Tonyan, Robert Tonyan, against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I just don't think it's going to be a Tonyan game, man. I think it's going to be a big Aaron Jones night, and I think it's going to be a little bit of Devontae Adams. I just don't think there's going to be enough for him. He might score one touchdown, but I'm not a guy that really wants to rely on touchdowns as they are the least sticky metric in fantasy football. So even though, as we have touched on earlier in the thing, that we said that there have been a couple players that have scored a touchdown every single game, it's not something that I am trying to rely on. When I'm looking at a player, that's the ceiling of a player. I'm not looking to play really that. I'm looking more at floors usually. Yeah, so it's Big Bob.
And I talked to somebody about Tonyan before, and I said his ceiling's only going to be as high as Devontae Adams allows. At the end of the day, if Devontae Adams goes out there and he's taking 15, 16 targets like he was to start the season prior to his injury, well, almost nobody else was relevant beyond Aaron Jones and Devontae Adams. So his ceiling really is there's already a ceiling in place because of Aaron Jones. The ceiling really gets capped and when you have Devontae Adams back in the lineup. So it's going to be really interesting to see how he fits into that mold with Devontae Adams back in play. But just you did talk about the Slayton shirt, so just a shout out to Veridian Global. Check those guys out at Veridian Global, VERIDIAN on Twitter at Veridian Global. They got some pretty awesome merchandise and definitely some more merchandise coming. Literally every week they have new merchandise pretty much coming out and offers like free shipping offers and among other things. So definitely big shout out to Veridian Global. So let's wrap this up there, Jim, with our tips for chips. So I see Jim has oh, there he's back. He's back. All right. Let's go. Oh, I can't hear you, Jim.
Hey, there we go.
There we go.
Sorry, internet connection was a little stuff. I apologize.
All good. So tips for chips. We're gonna wrap this up with.
Have you given yours?
For a chip, I did not give mine. I just introduced it. I just pitched Veridian Global and then introduced it as you froze on me.
I was doing this, man. It was too much gyrations and it broke the internet.
So I'll start with my tip for a champion chip, and it recently happened to me. It's happened to me a couple times this week because I'm the proud owner of 3 or 4 super struggling teams that are nowhere near contenders this year whatsoever. Know who you are trading with. One of my biggest pet peeves, this guy came to me with Julio Jones and said, Julio Jones for CeeDee Lamb straight up. And I said, I am 1-3. Look at my record. What is Julio Jones going to do for me? Look at what CeeDee Lamb's doing for me and what he is going to do for me. He then proceeded to look towards my Justin Jefferson share, and the negotiation stopped there because those are the 2 pieces that I would like to, potentially build around for the future. But know who you are negotiating with. Look at the team before you come and just sling an offer out. Make sure that you are not just going at a guy who's 0-4 and saying, I'm going to give you Todd Gurley. That guy likely sees no use for Todd Gurley, no need for Todd Gurley. Go to the 4-0 guy across the street for that Todd Gurley share because they may actually consider buying that Todd Gurley share off of you. So know who you're trading with and be observant of the roster makeup of that person.
Absolutely, Connor. That's a great one. And my tip for a ship also kind of has to do with other teams in the league, and that is when making waiver wire priority moves. Sometimes the best move you can make doesn't actually help your team; it actually cripples another contending team. For example, Andy Dalton. I don't need Andy Dalton on a team. I have $100 fab budget. I could spend $100 complete fab budget on Andy Dalton. I'm not going to. I looked at my league and I saw the team that probably needs Andy Dalton, also second place, has $88 fab. So I spent $89 fab on him, hoping that I'll get him, and I'm either the only one and nobody that with more money is going to bid on him. They could, you never know. But the contender doesn't get him and neither has to trade for him, losing valuable pieces this year and still knocking him out, or doesn't get a quarterback. And it's a super flex league. He's sorry, man. Like, you're not going to win. I don't think you're going to win the super flex league this year with only one quarterback. So like, that's my kind of tip for a ship is go ahead and look before making waiver wire picks at other rosters to see, like, again, like, you might not need an Andy Dalton. Go ahead and take a look at your league. He might be valuable to you as a trade piece this year. Never know.
100%. Love it. You took full advantage of the Dak Prescott injury.
Got
on
you,
multiple
man. Iron's hot, man.
Definitely.
Have to keep those opponents down.
If there's one thing we learned from Jim tonight, you can show mercy to the person who had their ankle snapped, but take 100% advantage of that.
Absolutely.
Speak
man.
kindly and then destroy your league mates
I
with
want
it.
Dak. I want Dak to be paid. Absolutely. I think he should. I think he totally deserves $35 million a year.
I think he does too. That it's the going rate. At the end of the day, this is going to be the going rate for quarterbacks, and
Well,
we have
it's
to
going to be
accept-
more because they fucking fucked up and didn't pay him. Then it's going to be more.
I wouldn't be surprised if he was offered more, and he didn't. He turned down multiple offers from Jerry, but the financials of those offers are not certain. So
I think the guaranteed money was the thing.
yeah, the guaranteed money was definitely the thing, and he proved it just the other night that that's why you go for the guaranteed money in
Connor.
football, because you never know.
Can I ask you a question?
You go ahead.
How many yards did Stephon Diggs have tonight?
How many yards does Stephon Diggs have tonight? Well, now I gotta open up the ESPN app. Are you making some bank tonight?
I think I might be going bananas.
Going bananas. Well, first of all, Buffalo got completely manhandled. Stephon Diggs,
Oh.
106 yards on 10 receptions.
Oh yeah, so he definitely had more than 76.5, you would say, right?
That's pretty juicy more.
Yeah.
Pretty juicy more.
That Josh Allen though, right? I think he would probably have less than 299.5 of them, right?
You would be spot on with 263.
Perfect. Now I know Tennessee being up so much, they wouldn't have to rely on Tannehill to throw, and they'd probably end up running with my man Derrick Henry. So I know Ryan Tannehill wouldn't have thrown for more than 244.5 now, would he?
You would absolutely be nailing it because he
Woo!
got 195.
Love it. Love it. That 3-banger. Love it.
Got to absolutely
More or
love it.
less. Give me some more.
And you know he is mentioning at MKF Monkey Knife Fight. Make sure that you go and you sign up and make sure you use the code TNFF on your first deposit, and they will match up to $50 of your first deposit. What a way to wrap it up.
Absolutely. Love it. See you guys next week in a new studio. The Pool Shed Studios.
Cannot wait. Better have some good internet out there. We can't have no cutting out for tips for chips here.
Don't worry, man. It'll be fine.
All right. Have a good one, everyone. And good luck, Jim, with the move.
Yeah, man. Thank you, guys.